Morning glory and evening grace, America. Good Friday to you. I begin this Friday Week in Review show with an acknowledgement that my listeners in Texas thought I was very, very unfair to Senator Cruz 2 days ago when I used my studio art, which is the Cleveland Plain Dealer cover from January when the Ohio State University Buckeyes won the first ever real playoff structure to take home the ring for college football. Therefore, because of that criticism, I have waived the dress code rules today. We normally have a collared shirt rule, but John Ellis, founder and managing editor of News Items, is proudly wearing his Longhorns t-shirt today. You know, John, I didn't realize it was this traumatic for Senator Cruz and you. I don't know that the Longhorns will ever get their mojo back, but I'm glad you're still in the game.
Well, my daughter went to the University of Texas and the University of Texas Law School, so we're hook 'em horns all the way.
So Senator Cruz predicted that two teams would meet again, not just next year, which is inevitable, that's scheduled, but in the playoffs this year. Do you agree with him?
I have no idea. I know nothing about college football. I just root for Texas, you know.
Okay. Let's get then to the big stories of the week. Number one, and I really got to admit, until I got your note, I hadn't paid much attention to this. The Google antitrust suit. Why does it matter, John Ellis?
Well, it matters because of what the judge, didn't do. What the judge didn't do was force Google to spin off its Chrome browser, and that was an acknowledgement. The judge ruled last year that Google had illegally barred other people from getting into the search market and therefore controlled 90% of the search market. Now the environment is, can Google survive, OpenAI and Perplexity and Anthropic and these other AI, essentially search engines? So the judge's decision to not require Google to divest itself of Chrome was really an acknowledgement that the search engine game had completely changed. So that was number one. Number two, I think, although the judge didn't say this in the 232-page ruling, but I think it's important to sort of point out that Google is a leader in AI. DeepMind is one of the top AI companies in the world. And Google is also a leader, one of the two leaders in the U.S. side of things, along with IBM, in quantum computing. And both of those enterprises, if you will, require vast amounts of money to make them work and to do the research and so on and so forth. So the judge essentially giving Google a pass to keep it as a financially robust company is probably best in the interest of the United States, because we don't want China to beat us on AI and we don't want China to beat us on quantum.
Well, that is a wonderful dose of judicial humility. I'm glad that, I'm not sure that the Congress and the executive branch will agree, but I'm glad the third branch doesn't get involved. Story number two. Again, I saw this in News Items this week, and I was unaware of the fact that clanker, in quotes, clanker, had become the go-to slur against AI on social media. When did this begin, and how big is it?
It's apparently, this is the first I had heard of it. That's how clueless I am. But I came across this story in the New York Times, and apparently the posts about the phrase clankers have amassed hundreds of millions of views on TikTok and Instagram. And this is being driven basically, they think, by Gen Z and Gen Alpha posters. Clankers is essentially reaction to the creeping AIification of everything. And so if you call, I don't know, XYZ customer service and you get AI on the other line, and they delay you until they hope that you hang up, that's known as a clanker. And it's sort of a movement now, in the same way, I guess, that, MAGA was a movement. Now there's the clanker movement.
I'm going to join that if I end up in another waiting room from hell talking to an airline representative that isn't really there, trying to figure out where I'm going next. Third story. In fact, there are a couple of stories this week in news items about Alzheimer's. You've highlighted the University of Bath research, but there was also another one. I can't. You always cover this medical developments. What did the University of Bath come up with vis-a-vis Alzheimer's?
Well, they came up with something called fastball EEG, which is a 3-minute passive test that records electrical activity in the brain while participants view a stream of images. So you're there, you've got this thing on, and you're looking at, pictures of Instagram turning over or whatever. And it can reliably identify memory problems in people who have mild cognitive impairment, which is MCI in the jargon. But it's a condition, MCI is a condition that can lead to Alzheimer's. So the thing that's exciting about it is you can do it at home, right? It takes 3 minutes, and it gives your physician or your neurologist or whatever a picture of your risk factor for Alzheimer's 3, 4, maybe even 5 years before it would be otherwise identified by whatever means. So I have a lot of stuff about Alzheimer's and Parkinson's in my newsletter because a lot of my newsletter readers and subscribers are 60 years old or older. But this is an astonishing development, and presumably, if it's rolled out in a big time way, then a lot of people will be able to, do what remedial work they can do or remedial therapies they can do to prevent Alzheimer's from ruining their lives.
One of the things I have learned from news items is that the drug pipeline for Alzheimer's treatment via the dissolving of the proteins that attach to the neural connections is pretty far advanced. So there's better ways to find it, and there are better ways to fight it, and you'll learn all about it at news items. Last story, and I left the most time for this. Inflation is, 2.7% right now, but you sent me the rundown on the fact that inflation legacy is a real deal, or legacy inflation. Please explain.
Well, I don't know if you and I have talked about this in the past, but the Biden administration in the last 2 years or whatever, last 18 months, kept insisting that inflation was coming down, right? But what people, don't really understand is a sort of a common misconception that prices come down when inflation cools. That's the general idea, right? Inflation is cooling, prices come down. But the reality is a period of high inflation leaves a legacy of high prices. So in simple terms, if something cost $2 and there was 10% inflation over 2 years, then that thing would cost $2.20. If inflation then slows to 2%, you would think that it's gone down 2% from where it was, but it's actually, you just add the 2% to the 10% already, and so the mismatch between being told that inflation is coming down and the reality, which is that the price of whatever you're buying is 22% more. That was the disconnect that the Biden campaign apparently didn't understand or didn't want you to understand. But everybody did understand it. The price of beans or the price of something had dramatically increased, and the inflation on top of that made it ever more expensive.
Now, John, this is off the cuff. The news this morning is the jobs report was disappointing with only 22,000 net jobs. Now, the private sector added 37,000 and the public sector shed some. So that's a slightly rosier picture. But the market is down, and I would have thought the market would have gone up with a bad jobs report. So I never predict markets, but were you surprised by that?
I was a little bit. I was really surprised by the jobs number going down because, there's so much being done on the AI data center. I mean, people are building data centers all over the country. The Beige Book that came out in August was basically, metro area after metro area growth is being driven by data centers. Well, to build a data center, you need, construction equipment, and you need people to do the job and install the servers and all of the work that goes into building a data center. And that didn't really show up. Manufacturing jobs have been down since January. So that was surprising to me. I wasn't surprised overall because Doge sort of takes effect, government employees, etc. So anyway.
John Ellis of News Items, thank you as always. Follow him on X at Ellis Items and go to Substack for your News Items subscription. It's what I read first every single morning, between a dozen and 20 items from around the world that keep you smart or make you smarter. Thank you, John. Go Bucks! I'll be right back.